Welcome back to Cozy Financial Planning. I thought we would take a different approach to discussion today on certain subreddits there about personal finance. And we're just going to take it from an entertainment purposes. It's not actual advice, just to cover the bases. And we're just going to take a look at it. We'll talk about it afterwards and kind of talk a little bit how this fits into financial advice and possibly what to do or similar things that pop into our heads. So the first one is about parents who can't pay their mortgage. Hi everyone, I'm a male, 25, 21, who is just realizing the situation my parents are in after a 5-year fixed variable rate mortgage they took out in 2021. My parents are with CIBC and I have just learned that they hit their trigger rate a while ago and that their payments couldn't completely cover the principal and interest. I was told today from my parents that they owe CIBC around $22,000 in arrears or deferred interest, not really sure, before they can renew with them for a 3-year fixed mortgage. My parents can only pitch in a $10,000 to $12,000 personal line of credit that they will take out and are asking me to contribute $8,000 to $10,000 to cover the rest. They are also asking me to contribute $300 every month starting in the summer to cover the new mortgage payment they will be renewing at in the summer. It is pretty much unfeasible to rent or to move homes, unfortunately. I believe they've lost a lot of their equity considering the house was purchased for $1.1 million and now is probably valued at $900,000. There's a lot of already some interesting bits of information here that are a little concerning. Number one, that they owe $22,000 in arrears and that they have to take another line of credit, so they're just going into more debt to pay it down. So like, it's a little dicey already. I have that amount of cash liquid though, $8,000 to $10,000, but it was my personal savings to purchase a new car as I'm graduating this spring to treat myself after undergrad. I am very, very hesitant to just give 10 grand worth of money and to never see it again for financial literacy mistakes I didn't make. However, I also live at home and can't just see my parents lose their home because of me. I'm not sure what to do. I feel trapped and it really does suck since it destroys my personal finance goals I had and sets me back so much. And there is an edit for clarification. My issue isn't paying them rent but more so the $10,000 I'll see again as they won't be able to pay it back to me. So right off the hop, there's not enough information. As an advisor, I always want as much information as possible, and I would ask further questions. You know, what are the parents' incomes, other assets, if they have any, what are they doing to what was the house purchased for, stuff like that. The son, he's only 21, he's an undergrad, which is fantastic. He's been able to squirrel away money, about $10,000. Obviously, it sounds like he's lived rent-free this whole time, which is fine. It's totally cool. He's in school, right? And so they're asking $300. He's fine with that, which is, you couldn't find that anywhere in Toronto or pretty much anywhere. To live in a nice place in a whole house, right? You get to access to the whole house. You also don't want, I understand the behavior and emotions behind this. As an advisor, a lot of our attention wasn't just the numbers. It was a lot about the behavior, psychology, emotions, everything affected it. It's why a lot of my advice isn't always numbers based. It's just based on stuff like whatever helps you sleep at night. That's one of my favorite sayings. You know, you can't stress out for 30 years every night just because it's, logically best. Sometimes you do. It is a balancing act, yes. However, generally speaking, make sure you can sleep at night first. So there's a couple things here. It's not his fault, but if his parents go homeless because they can't get the money anywhere else, what's he gonna do? He's also gonna be homeless and he won't find money. He won't find a place to live for $300. He also won't have access to his parents' cars if he's currently using them. And buying a $10,000 car, he can sleep in it, but it's not much of anything. And it's not it'll last maybe a few months worth of first and last month's rent living on his own and maybe help him out, but it depends on what work he does and possibly can get after undergrad. Or is his plan to go back to school? Those are all questions I would ask or want more information. However, off the top of my head, one idea is ask the parents if they will use it as a loan backed up by the house. So if they sell, he can get back the $10,000 that he's lending them. So it's not lost, like he said, it's put into something that he's gonna benefit from because it is over a roof over his head currently. But the idea would be is when they get undercover, maybe in the next renewal, they can pay him back the $10,000. This is a very tough one because it's child versus parents, not versus, but it's child and parents involved. So it's a lot of emotionals, a lot of stuff tied to them personally. This is a very tough one. As I said, this is emotional and there's a lot of questions and you would have to tread lightly either way. I think the best conversation solution is to, you don't want to damage your relationship with your parents, but maybe even lend them less. Maybe it's $5,000 you can only lend them. I think the best idea, my personal opinion, this is not advice, is I would tie it into the house somehow. So if they sold it, it's yours. If it goes up in equity, the next renewal, you get it back. Or if they make a payment to it. So it's not gone entirely. So the next one is very simple. I think this is a very important message that this user is trying to get across. And I think it's good. Very simple. 10 years ago, I opened an investment account with RBC for the very specific purpose of just having it to get multi-product discount on their basic everyday checking account. It literally serves no other purposes. I only put in the minimum initial buy of the mutual fund at the time, which was $500. Picked to look like what was an okay fund. I think it's MER, which is management expense ratio, so it's the fees you pay. It's just around 2.3% at the time. It's now down to 1.86. Today, the account is worth $1,350, annualized return of 10.58%. For those that need help painting a picture, if it keeps up for another 20 years, big assumption of course, it'll be over $10,000. In 30 years, over $27,000. Point is, stay invested, even if it's an expensive mutual fund. Time in market is most important factor. And I agree with this 100%. Time in the market is the most important factor. Starting today at low amounts, I've said in many videos, start somewhere. You do have to become a saver before you become an investor. But if you just put something away, over time it's going to grow in an appropriate spot. Even if there's fees involved, I get it. It could be more, but something's still better than nothing. In this case, this person left $500 in 20 years or whatever. In 10 years, it grew $1,350. And some people in the comments talked about and said they did the rough envelope math and they said it was like $280, but it was about $170 of fees over that period of time. And my belief is, and they say, yeah, there's too many fees. And I'm not going to argue over the amount of fees. My opinion on it is pretty straightforward on the idea. If somebody offered you and said, I'll give you $850 and you only have to give me $170 and we'll do this trade, who would say no to that trade? I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying everything else is out there. I'm not saying you can't do better. But generally speaking, if the fees are there and you still gotta win, why are you gonna fight against that win? Yes, you can get more somewhere else, but that's also part of the reason I always say money should have a purpose. And then this becomes less of a conversation. And as long as you're tracking for your goal, you're not really upset about anything. And you use ETFs and stuff like that on your own. I'm not saying don't use them, they're very useful. I just dislike the idea that people argue over stuff when it's like, well, if we had a goal for this, and as long as you're getting towards your goal, it becomes a secondary issue and not something at the forefront. So again, the message is stay invested. Timing the market is more important than timing the market. I thought this was a good one. Emergency fund versus maxed out TFSA. For context, this person, early 30s, single, no kids, recently paid off a 6-figure student loan, which congratulations, that's awesome. Have about $14,000 in a TFSA on robo-advisor stuff. 5K emergency fund sitting in a high interest savings account. Standard advice is keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. This is true, but you do want to base it off you and your life. I get the argument is supposed to be liquid in case of emergencies, but just seems like over a long period of time, investing would yield significantly more. Should I be focused on building an emergency fund or maxing out TFSA right away? Or split my savings between them? I would need to have around $30,000 saved to cover 6 months of expenses. At this rate, that would take me 2 years from my current salary. Appreciate any advice. I get you want to maybe have 6 months of expenses, but you can start the 3 month or 1 month and just kind of snowball it and keep building up. My general consensus on this for entertainment purposes, like what would you do or what would you recommend? My recommendation in this case is emergencies don't wait for you to over the long period of time for the tax-free savings account to gain all that wealth over what's sitting in liquid. Emergencies don't wait. That's why they're emergencies. Things just happen. I get it. You're single, no kids, you're early 30s, so no medical things, nothing happened to you at this point in time. And I would not wish anything to happen to anyone. But that's why emergencies come up. Just something comes up. And that's why, you lose your job. Nobody's going to say, well, we have to wait for that person's TFSA to incur enough growth over the next 10 years before we can fire them. And then you're in a struggling economy and you can't find a job again. Or you might be able to find one, but not the same pay scale, that type of thing. So things happen and we should be prepared for them. And if you have the ability and the privilege to be prepared for them, I recommend doing it. So we're going to end on this one. I think this one's a good one. It's a good topic that I've talked about with people many times at tables, and it's generally a conversation that comes up frequently. So first off, hi all. Much like the title says, I'm considering withdrawing $5,000 from our RSP, which is $7,000 valued, to help pay off the majority of my credit card debt, which is about $7,000. So they want to withdraw $5,000 to pay off $5,000 of credit debt, and they'll have to be left over about $2,000. Currently, I'm paying around $1,200 monthly towards this debt. which tells me a trigger, which is they're paying well over the minimum amount, which is fantastic habit to have. And it tells me that they're kind of bothered by having this amount of debt, that it's a psychological thing and it's a feeling they have and they don't want to have this debt. So those are things to note for later. And it's just been a slow battle between also keeping my other credit card used for subscriptions or recurrent bills to keep it active, completely paid off, and paying rent. So again, they have a credit card for regular bills and they pay that off regularly, but then they also have this big debt. I additionally do not have a vehicle anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. Once my debt is paid, I'll be saving for a down payment and car insurance. I would love to hear someone else's opinion on my situation. Thank you. So they added some more information, and so I would like to share this and then we'll talk about what things are. I'm 28, making around $45,000 a year. I know my RSP is low, but better late than never. It's true. Everyone should be applauded for saving. This debt came up because of major unexpected expenses back to back to back that I didn't have enough to cover out of pocket. And of course, the interest skyrocketed once all those expenses were on the same card for a few months. Just like our previous story, emergencies don't wait. It sucks, but things happen. And thankfully, I had a credit card and they have a job and they have some savings and they can figure something out. Needless spending has already been cut down to a minimum. The subscriptions are my phone bill, Adobe subscription for the freelance work, and sponsor kids. I don't have any streaming or music services either. If I buy something, it goes onto this credit card now since it's being paid off constantly. I've tried calling my credit card company for reduced interest, but my situation is not applicable. All right, so they had some expected things and they want to pay this down, but they're paying $1,200 down already. Here is the entertaining advice that I would give to this person. So first and foremost, it's not always the biggest deal, but it is in the back of the mind. You only make $45,000. You only get $18,000. 18% of that gets forwarded to Vroom the following year, right? That's what you make off of it. So what's that? Just under $9,000, roughly $8,000 maybe, roughly, off the top of my head, of space you create. So you have essentially a year's worth of space that you want to kind of withdraw, or almost like half of it, and pay down this debt. So one, you're going to lose that space. It never comes back. And you worked really hard. You worked the whole year to gain that. So that's number one. Number two, the growth off that $5,000 is never going to come back. You're not going to get it. Third, you're going to withdraw that money. 10% is going to come off the top because it's the lowest amount, 10 or 20%. And then the rest is going to be added to your income for the year. So you're going to have an income instead of $45,000 to be up to $50,000. And you might have to maybe you hit another tax bracket by accident, and you might have to pay more taxes than you originally thought. These are things that could happen. Further, other than just touching it, a very simple system, and I know people don't like it because debt bothers them and it's hard to manage sometimes, is if they're spending $1,200 and that is, I believe, more than the minimum, I think they should cut it down to $800 and put $400 into savings. The reason I would do this is because one, you're going to extend out the amount of time it's going to take to pay it off. That is absolutely correct. For those that are saying it, from $800 to $1,200, you're going to put less down. You pay a little bit more interest. However, at some point they're going to even out, right? So if you're paying this down slowly, but you're saving slowly, eventually they even out. And if you really, really have that problem, you could just pay it off instantaneously with the savings, if that really bothers you, right? Or more important, if these emergencies come up, you may have this money to pay for this cash so that way you don't incur the debt again and have that recurring mindset that, oh my God, my credit card's still high. Oh my God, my credit card's still high. Because something always comes up and we can't always factor everything in, right? Instead of putting little things and you have no streaming services, you have no music services, instead of doing this stuff and you've already done a great job cutting out things like car and everything. Instead of doing this, build up a savings, right? Even if it's 3 months down the road, you paid down $2,400 on the credit card, and then you're gonna have $1,200 in your bank account. If something comes up, you should be able to cover a lot of immediate things can be covered by $1,200, roughly, relatively minor stuff. Then you just drain that. Sucks. I hate paying stuff out of my savings account, but it's better than raising the credit, and then you're still in perpetual cycle and you'll never get ahead. The other thing is time is of the essence. We don't have time always to pay something down to grow our savings afterwards. There's just not a lot of time working, right? So if another emergency pops up, you're still up more money that you now have to spend another month or two paying down instead of saving. Now, if you could do both, why not? Now, if it makes you feel more comfortable, maybe you want to do 900 and 300, that's fine too. I just think 8 and 4 is easy. Instead of it, you'd be paid off in about 6 months at $1,200, give or take. Whereas at $800, it's gonna take you closer to 10 months to pay it all off, right? 9-10 months. However, those additional months are going to be very low if you just continue this up, because if you use cash in your savings account, in addition, you're always going to consistently see your balance go down and there'll be less interest on the credit anyway, because you're consistently paying down and not utilizing it. And you have another credit card. If you feel like it's affecting your credit, you have another credit card that you're paying off monthly as it is to manage all your other stuff. So your phone bill and everything else. So why not? This is a very simple way to look at it. Just an idea. And there you go. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this part of it, happy to discuss this. I would love to hear in the comments what you thought of these stories, what advice you might give instead. If you thought I'm out of place, by all means, happy to hear from you. And until the next one, I'm Aaron again at Cozy Financial Planning. Hope you enjoy.